If the president believes Israel is engaging in indiscriminate bombing, wouldn't there be an obligation from the U.S. to put new conditions on military aid?
Every bit of security assistance we give any other country always comes with the expectation that the law of armed conflict is going to be respected and obeyed. As I said earlier, we're not going to assess every single airstrike here from this particular podium. That wouldn't be appropriate. The Israelis should speak to their operations, but we have every expectation, as I said to my previous answer there, that they will act in accordance with the law of armed conflict and do everything that they can to match their intent, which is to minimize civilian casualties.
But if they aren't, then isn't there an obligation for the U.S. to change the way that it's delivering military aid?
That's a hypothetical that I'm not prepared to engage in right now.
It's not hypothetical if you say indiscriminate bombing.
That's a hypothetical I'm not going to engage in. We have expressed our concerns, the president has, publicly and privately with the Israelis, about the need to reduce civilian casualties, and we're going to continue to do that. I expect you'll see Jake address this too when he's in the region.
And on the hostages, is there a concern that hostages could be held in tunnels that are potentially being flooded?
Well, some of the hostages come out and said that they were held in tunnels, so it's not beyond possibility that Hamas could be holding at least some of them in tunnels as they move them around, which we have to expect that they'll do. But if you're asking about the flooding specifically, I'm not going to speak for Israeli military operations. They should speak to that. I would just say that we all need to remember the particular extra difficulty that they have going after a group like Hamas, which isn't just a terrorist group, but it also has sort of a military structure to it, and they deliberately tunnel under civilian infrastructure to allow for the movement of their fighters and for storing equipment and things. That adds an extra burden on the Israelis. And I would just say again, without confirming these reports about flooding, that as we've said before, we recognize their right and responsibility to go after Hamas, which is posing a particularly tactically difficult problem for them by using tunnels, but to do so in a way that reduces damage to civilian infrastructure above the ground and certainly reduces any chance of civilian casualties inside those tunnels, which would include hostages.